Way to bring us in. Awesome. Oh, it looks like
I'm wearing a sweater. You guys are wearing everyone's wearing t-shirts. I feel so overdressed.
Yeah. Actually, I'm on my second t-shirt. I just peeled off, my first one.
Your OG.
One of my OGs. I don't know. We'll see how many chocolate Dick Taylor chocolate t-shirts I have. Here we go. Round two.
What? Oh, nice.
nice back.
Yes.
Wow.
That's a good one.
I mentioned the t-shirts because I'm wearing a sweater and I didn't think we would be working so hard as musicians tonight.
It's high energy here.
That's good. I think I'm going to check here. It looks like, and pardon my back and forth here, but I am doing a lot of multitasking. I think we have most everybody here. And I actually launched a poll. I don't know if you guys can notice on your screen. You're welcome to take part in that as we go. Some of the questions are for now. Some of them are for later. It's more like, just some pretty basic questions.
Oh, I see.
I thought would be fun to participate. And there's also a group chat if you like. If you guys are not familiar, you can message to other people participating. If you know.
Oh my gosh. Gosh, Casey, whoa!
We can message.
Holy cow! Look at that hair.
Yep.
Thanks.
Yep.
I love on the poll.
So
this is cool. Look at you. Hey, Kosh.
Okay. So so you can do the chat there, and yeah. So welcome everybody. I guess we've gotten the musical intro in there. Thanks for hanging out with me and the guys from Dick Taylor with special musical guest Bradford Akerman, who you see is Adam Dick and Dustin Taylor on the Adam Dick screen. On my left is Adam. I see Adam on the left and Dustin on the right. Yeah, there we go. And I'm Jessica of Bar Cacao, and I've been hanging out with the guys from Dick Taylor. I actually kind of put it together I couldn't put it together, actually. So
I think the first time that we met you was the very first year we ever went to the Northwest Chocolate Festival, and it was still at the convention center. And we were like super green at the time and would have sold chocolate to anybody that even had the slightest interest. And here you were like, I think that you could be a rapper, I can be a rapper or something. And we're like, let's do it. And it's ever since.
This is not this story. This is okay, because I remember this. You turned
Not the story. Fake story, fake news.
I remember this. You turned me down.
Did I?
Yes. I'll tell you why.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, you turned me down because you're like, we are so not ready. Come back next year. And this would happen. I remember the first time you're like, yeah, no, yeah, we're not ready. We're not there yet.
Right.
Well, at that point, I think we were making, what, 25 pounds
A week or
a week or a
something.
month.
Yeah, it was really small. It was when you had the wrapped bars. And I have an image. I looked through photos. We'll see if I'll probably pull up some photos at some point. 2011. I have your bar, Dominican Republic bar from 2011. I took a photo. So, anyways, we go way back, obviously, and it's always been so much fun working with you guys. You guys are some of my favorite partners, so it's really fun to launch with you guys. And actually, an interesting thing I also noted in going back through the history books is that 5 years ago, Dustin, you actually finally got your FaceTime, no stunt doubles or anything. With the Meet Your Maker series, it was the very end of May. We did it in San Francisco. You were passing through, and I roped you into a meet.
Yep. Right above 6th Force.
Yes, exactly, in San Francisco. That was a really good time. And probably the most memorable thing with me, because it stuck around, was that everybody was into the Slug Slime bar. Slug Slime is basically everything bagel stuff, and they put it all over the back of a chocolate and did a Humboldt State University bar. And it, it kind of gives some funds to Humboldt State, these guys' alma mater. And everybody was so into it that I bought these cases, and I still have some in my kitchen.
Oh no.
I loved the moment. It was perfect in the moment, but then afterwards, everyone thought, I don't know about garlic in my chocolate. It's a good idea, but
Some people loved it, some people hated it.
Yeah.
Well,
So
no garlic tonight.
Yep, no garlic.
no, not, at least not in what we're doing. I don't know though. I mean, I definitely told people to pair and taste with whatever they want. Maybe somebody's got some garlic going on. I don't know.
Yeah.
Hopefully not. So let's see here. What do we want to do here? So, well, I've been tasting chocolate since my whole life, but I kind of fell into it in 2007, and then got a little more serious about it a decade ago, and started doing anything I could to support craft chocolate. So this is one of the things I love to do most. I really love to bring people together and taste and talk chocolate and hang out and just have a good time. I think it could be educational, it can be entertaining. So I hope you guys do have a good time. Do you guys all have I should make sure we don't have anyone in the waiting room with all of these. I think I need to turn off the waiting room. In fact, we got some more people in here. I'll try and keep an eye on that.
There we go.
The poor waiting room.
Waiting room. Welcome out of the waiting room.
Sorry, we haven't really, we haven't really done much. Let's see if I can, I'm gonna disable the waiting room. There we go. Everyone's free to come and go as they choose.
Wow.
Okay. It looks like people have had Dick Taylor before, and chocolate, and biggest party is Party of Five, lots of solo players. And yeah, what are we pairing with? We got water and wine mostly for the pairing.
We got some beer. We got some
some
cider.
Cider from Humboldt Cider Company.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, you guys.
Cowgirl Creamery and some
We got a high water campfire stout. Because this is literally happy hour. We are at work still and have been here since early this morning. So this is kind of like dinner and a little hangout time.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'm currently I'm going to be the teetotaler for now because because I can't multitask when I have any beverages in me. So I have chamomile tea.
Good.
Which I like, and some warm water in my most excellent Dick Taylor
Proper
water.
drinking container.
Perfect. Yes. I highly recommend. So do we all I hope we all have our tasting kits out, and I guess just a couple. Yeah. You guys got the best spread. Jeez. I don't know though. I don't know. I see some pretty good spreads out there. We'll see. So anyways, I guess some simple things for tasting chocolate. You guys should have gotten a little bit of heads up, and you want to engage your senses is the simplest way of putting it. You can use all of your senses for taste. We think about it as what happens on our tongue, but actually all of our senses play into it. And if you want to learn more about that, there's a book called Taste by Barb Stuckey. Awesome book. Awesome book. Tells you all about your sense of taste. It's really cool stuff. Anyways, but what you want to do is first, take a look at the bar. You're going to, think about the direction that you're going to go in. You're going to use your eyes. You can even use your ears when the chocolate snaps. You want to listen to whether it seems firm or soft. In my 80-degree apartment right now, it's probably going to be pretty soft. Hopefully you're in a kind of 70-degree environment. I think that's kind of ideal for tasting. So you want to take a look at how it looks. Does it have a nice shiny sheen? Obviously, Dick Taylor's bar mold is beautiful. That's definitely something to admire. The colors are different from chocolate to chocolate. If you have your squares laid out on your tasting page, you may notice some differences from one chocolate to another. And next up is smelling it. Get it really nice in your face, smelling it. Notice the aromas, and then's the nice time to taste. And as you can see on our tasting mats, the guys from Dick Taylor are going to take you through these and tell you about each of these. So we will get into that more specifically, but I just wanted to give you a little heads up on the kinds of things you're noticing. And you'll notice that the chocolates do have a lot of different flavors in and of themselves. But I think I'm speaking to my crowd who kind of understands that, just because they're just chocolate, we still have a lot of variations in flavor profiles. From nutty to floral to lemony to you name it. So many flavors available in chocolate. I think, and in terms of pairing is about really just making your mouth happy. If you have some, we've already mentioned a lot of good beverages, but really it's just making your mouth happy, having a lot of fun with what you're doing. If something works well, great. If it doesn't, try something else, and sometimes it's fun to take one drink and have a number of chocolates with it to see which one it pairs with better and think about why it might taste better, pair better with another, or you can kind of mix it up depending on your mood and your vibe. But I think we're probably all ready to taste some chocolate at this point. What do you guys think?
Yeah,
let's do chocolate.
Awesome. All right.
We start with the Jamaica, is that right?
Yeah. The one in the pretty black box.
So when we have tours and stuff, and we talk about tasting here at the factory, I like to talk to just a sec. We always talk about like a flavor arc with chocolate, and ideally fine chocolate I feel like should have some type of flavor development in your mouth or on your palate. So if you put it in your mouth and it might initially be, oh my gosh, this is really bitter, or this tastes really astringent, or it's really fruity, or whatever your initial impression is, think about how does that change as the chocolate fully melts in your mouth, and then even after there's no chocolate in your mouth, what's the flavor that you're kind of left with in the end? Thinking about all those things I think is really important. And then we talk about textures being really important in chocolate. I mean, we love chocolate because of that magical, silky sensation when we put it in our mouths, and we're tasting single origin chocolates tonight. So ideally, my goal as a chocolate maker is that when you put this in your mouth, you go, wow, it's so smooth. That to me is the goal with a single origin dark chocolate. We also make inclusion bars where we put ingredients with the chocolate that will change the texture, and so that's another key thing in tasting. But these tonight should all be really smooth, and so you can notice the texture on your palate, but also how does it melt? Does it melt real evenly? Does it kind of have a longer delayed melt? Those are some things to think about as you're tasting, and really this tasting kit. I'm sure you guys got the little there's like a little kind of a pamphlet that's inside there that talks about tasting, and kind of our idea was to have
Coming at you.
yeah. It looks like this, but this was kind of, the idea was to have it be kind of like this mindfulness exercise, really slow down and taste things and really think about it. So I encourage you to save some of the chocolate and go over this thing again in a quiet room and just really like think about it. Interesting, you'll have what your thoughts are, because trying to slow down, really think about eating chocolate.
Yeah, and I will say too, like what Dick Taylor, you'll notice by the end the differences, but also like what Dick Taylor is about. And Adam, you're like one of the biggest texture freaks I know. Like, and it shows, in terms of the smoothness of the texture. It's really hard to get this kind of texture, I'll say, with just 2 ingredients without adding any cocoa butter or anything. So that's one of the reasons I love your stuff. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Yeah, it was early on something that Dustin and I knew. Initially when we started making chocolate in 2010, there was a lot of makers kind of entering the market, and people were excited about craft chocolate largely because it's so different. The flavor of 2-ingredient chocolate is so different than what you could buy in the grocery store at the time. So there was initial draw by consumers to try craft chocolate. But Dustin and I felt like as more and more people are converted to craft chocolate, they're like, the flavor becomes, wow, they're used to how different the flavor is. But now what we get 10 years later, we get a lot of people say, wow, your texture is really, really good. We almost get more, we used to get so many comments about flavor. The flavor is terrible. I mean, I like to think the flavor is still just as good, but I think people are used to the flavor of craft chocolate, and now your average craft chocolate consumer is much more educated, and they have a much more sophisticated palate, and they're saying the texture has to be really good, and we totally agree there. So that was why early on we built our production model, to emulate those things that we wanted in the texture of the chocolate. So it's a long, different, it's a complicated process that we have here, but we feel like it's the best. We didn't like invent it or anything like that, but we just kind of took the best of other production models and chocolate makers that we really, really liked and tried to figure out how they were doing it and then emulate that. That kind of was a good segue. This bar here, this Jamaica, was really inspired by a Jamaica bar that I tasted years ago from Road Chocolatier. And it was one of those bars that I had, and I was like, this is like top 5. It was so good.
That was delicious. Yes.
Yeah, that bar was so good. And it was Jamaica Bachelor Hall, and it like always resonated with me. And, I know Colin, and he, where he got his beans from is, it's a secret. And I totally respect that. And so it was about a year ago that we got contacted by somebody who was offering to sell some Jamaica.
In a dark alley.
Yeah, it was in a dark alley. And so we were like, well, we probed a little bit. It turns out it was the same stuff. And we were like, oh my gosh, we have to have it. So this bar we're really excited about. It just got a wonderful, kind of a nutty flavor profile. It's real like fudgy, chocolatey. And I think it's 75%, still plenty sweet, but you still get a lot of the subtlety in the cacao. I don't know what other people's thoughts are.
I totally agree with that. And actually, speaking of Jamaica bars, I found a Soma bar that I actually took a corner out of this morning, Bachelor's Hall.
Yes, that's another really good bar.
Yeah, and it's pretty different though. Theirs really kind of plays on the fruit, and yours is less fruity and more of that. I get a lot of that kind of nutty mid-range flavors that I really like. I just, over the years, I love the tangy. I think the tangy stuff is kind of fun, but sometimes after a while, I'm like, I just want the pleasure of it. I don't want to be shocked or totally overwhelmed with it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I love this, and I think like your limited release bars, you just slay it with them. I don't know. If anybody has a thought, I have muted you all, but you're welcome to unmute yourself and chime in if you like. We're taste about the Jamaica one before we go on to the blues.
It looks like Bradford was trying to comment. I don't know.
No, maybe he just wants us to read lips. He's a co-host.
I thought it was, for some reason, I thought you muted me. I thought
So
you
I have
muted
a
me.
question. I have a question.
Yes.
So how does one determine, how do you determine that it's a limited release? When does it stop being limited?
Right. So we, we have like the other bars that we're going to be tasting, our Madagascar, our Belize, and our Brazil. They kind of form the backbone of what we make. And, we choose those origins primarily, always in the beginning based on the flavor and quality is what will, get you excited about a certain cacao. But then, for a maker like us, we have to make sure that there's enough of it available. So like the Belize, for instance, if they couldn't supply all that we needed, that's difficult because we potentially lose shelf space if we don't have that product in stock, you know what I'm saying? So a bar that we bring and just like it's, readily available, we need a certain pretty steady supply of that cacao. Like this Jamaica, for instance, couldn't provide that for us. So then it becomes something that we might just buy, a certain volume of, plus this Jamaica is incredibly expensive compared to other cacaos that we buy. So that sometimes can play into it, but a lot of that's driven, a lot of the price is driven by quality, but also some scarcity plays into that too. So it's not a huge estate. And so we bought, kind of what we thought would last us, a few months, and then we've got a few, other origins down the line.
Great.
When we first started making chocolate, one thing that was so exciting was being able to like try this origin and make a little bit of chocolate and try this and make a little bit of that. And as the business got bigger over the years, it's bigger ship to steer. And so by having this limited release, we can kind of be a little more nimble and kind of experiment with this and then experiment with something else. So it kind of keeps it, some of the early excitement in chocolate making going for us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So good. I have a question. Can I ask the question?
Yes.
How do we put our hand up? What do we do?
I see your hand, Brad.
Me?
Yeah.
So did you ever see Netflix? Netflix?
I have.
I've seen the Netflix.
From time to time.
So Netflix had a documentary on there called Somm. It was about the wine world,
Yes.
And there was a fellow on there who supposedly in the early 70s designed a lot of the hoops that you had to go through to reach different levels to be a sommelier, right? How do you say it?
Sommelier, I think.
Sommelier, yeah. And I think ultimately you have to know the year, the region in the vintage, the grape or something. There's like 3 things.
Yeah.
And you're given 3 reds and 3 whites, I believe. And the fellow who's considered like one of the best, black belts in that industry was able to do it by looking at it instead of by tasting it. And I was wondering if you've found a similar thing in your world. If you like see a bean or you see it melting, you see it in the machine, and you're like, okay, that is definitely, you can tell it's from Madagascar or Trinitario or something.
Yeah,
I'd say we haven't played with enough beans. At this point, the ones we've worked with.
Yeah, all the ones that we have here, like I don't need, if they were like all in a bucket, I could tell you which each one.
Really?
Yeah, but that's because I've spent a lot of time with a limited number of origins. You know what I'm saying? I couldn't like meet a cacao on the street and necessarily tell you.
Well, that's what I meant. That you can see it, but you've spent that much time with these beans. It's very intimate. Sounds like.
Some of the people that do commodity cacao grading, I think they can pick out certain countries of origin. But what you're talking about there is like this really big bulk aggregated like amalgam of cocoa bean like stuff. It's different. What they're doing. They're looking at like what does Ecuador produce in general if you put it all in a big bag and blended it together. So we're working with these real exclusive niche origins. I couldn't do it personally.
Well, it sounds like you you do it.
Well, just with
Is
the one.
Well, the ones
Right.
we-
I mean, just yours.
They're my kids, and I know them all well.
Right. Well, you know, if you look in the back of the packaging, right, there are these tasting notes. So who comes up with the tasting notes?
As a whole staff, we kind of start that vote process.
Yeah.
We kind of, you know, we have a sheet that goes out with a new origin, and all the staff, everybody tastes around, and everybody just starts writing down their tasting notes, and then we kind of bring it down to a general, you know, these berries are similar, and so it kind of brings in these sort of flavor notes, and then in the end, Adam's kind of the one who brings up the vocabulary for that.
And they're kind of organized. It's not necessarily straight across the board, but they're kind of organized aroma, flavor, and finish. Yeah, sorry.
Oh.
That's new. So yeah, the first tasting note is how much I know about this stuff. I don't know anything about it. But anyway, apricot, and then like the flavor, kind of one flavor note that we felt was prevalent. And anyway, that's
All right. Well, I have a question too then, because I just noticed the aroma, flavor, and finish on the new bars. That's a relatively new addition.
Yeah,
Yes.
and we're changing the packaging yet again, so just to keep you guessing.
All right.
Really?
I love the variations. I love when I find a tweak. So my Belize bar, good old USPS is not delivered to, well, we blame USPS for one and UPS for another, but I did not get my chocolate. So I'm relying on my samples, which I do have, but this Belize bar does not have that. Would you say it holds across the board?
Yeah.
Yeah. The order holds across the board.
Cool.
We just didn't name it until recently.
Belize. Shall we?
Yeah.
Let's go to Belize.
I have a question.
Yes.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. How did you guys get into chocolate making? And your chocolates are really, really good. And which is your favorite kind of chocolate, or are you telling us?
Go for it.
Well, I mean, the story of how we got into chocolate is kind of a long one, but you know, Adam and I have
You
been
should give them the like.
so Adam and I have been good friends for a long time. We saw the Mass Brothers video in 2010. If any of you heard of the Mass Brothers or saw them, basically in 2010, there's very few chocolate makers, but the Mass Brothers video was this cool thing, and so Adam and I saw that. No background in chocolate or food or anything, and
I had some background.
we worked at a pizza shop.
I worked at a coffee shop. You know, I worked at a deli.
You clean the floor, so that doesn't count.
Pizza and chocolate don't go together.
So anyways, we saw that video. Friends know we like to try new things, and so that kind of just sparked the interest of chocolate. I had no idea it comes in these burlap bags, and you know, it's just cool. It just kind of opened our eyes to this whole new, you know, hobby, and that's all how it started. It was just as a hobby, and so we saw the video. We were driving down to play a wedding, bought the equipment on our way back on our phones, and got a little 5-pound grinder in Adam's washroom, and then John Nancy's, Chocolate Alchemy, little website up out of Eugene, Oregon. So bought our first little 5 pounds of beans, roasted that in Adam's oven, told some friends, and then they said, you guys should sell this. And
Well, they didn't tell you. It was terrible.
well, terrible stuff, but I mean, it's terrible, but like we were explaining how in those early days, you know, it was exciting and new. It was different. You know, it's like, even though now looking back, it was gritty and over roasted and all that kind of stuff, it was still 2-ingredient chocolate was unheard of. You know, here's this totally reinvention of something that we all thought we knew so well. And so that's kind of what sparked the interest. And then really we kind of got caught up in, it was kind of the right place at the right time when this industry was already starting to pick up momentum. Because I think we had to hustle it, work harder at moving it up. I mean, it just felt like
so easy.
it just felt like in those early days, you know, they were yearning for anybody new who made chocolate.
There wasn't market saturation at the time, and so it was like, you're a craft chocolate maker? Yes, you know, we want you on the shelf. And
Yeah,
so
they didn't care if it's good or not. It's like, it looked decent, put it on the shelf. And
it
so,
was very fortunate for us.
yeah, we had a good learning curve along the way. And then, you know, after people started buying it and became this little thing, that's when we were still full-time carpenters for the first 2 years of the business, and still, you know, those were our livelihoods. And then we
Actually, can you speak to that a little bit, to your, like, when your side hustles became your main hustle, when your main hustle became your side hustle?
We've always been hustling.
I mean, we did carpentry. We made chocolate on Mondays, and then we did carpentry for the other 4 days of the week. We did that for 2.5 years.
Yeah.
But what happened was then chocolate, we were doing that on Mondays, and then we were doing it like on Saturdays and Sundays, and then like the other days after work. So it was really getting to where we couldn't manage both. And so then we quit the carpentry and focused on chocolate full time, which of course we saw the business grow fairly rapidly, but initially we were basically volunteering because there just wasn't, any money that we made needed to go back into like buying another piece of equipment or more wrappers or whatever. So yeah, it was 2.5 years, and then both of our wives the early years kind of worked other jobs, and so it's definitely not a get rich quick scheme. If anybody is feeling like that, it's turned out to not be that for us, but it's really fun and it's really rewarding.
Can I ask a question? Hi,
Yeah.
it's Elle. I first tasted your chocolate when I was in Oklahoma. It was in like a little side bistro, and I wanted to try it because the packaging was so beautiful. And I wanted to ask, how do you come up with your packaging, and what does it all mean? Like, how do you decide what's on the packaging, what illustrations? Because it's just really, the whole presentation just sets you up for like a great sensory experience from the minute you just buy it. So I wanted you to ask for that.
That is a great compliment. Thank you.
Well, the packaging, it's coming from a carpentry background, and then getting into chocolate. When we got into chocolate, it's 2 ingredients, simple chocolate. We're like, this is so different than regular chocolate. And so I remember having the conversations when, first we came up with the name. That took a while. Should we call it Taylor Dick or Dick Taylor or this or that? And so finally we had the name. And my brother's he's the illustrator behind the whole brand. He works at Pixar. He's a fantastic artist. So it's all in the family. But I remember early on, we wanted, something that conveys what you're gonna have inside. Like you feel this simple packaging. Hopefully the chocolate is simple and high quality. And so we were looking for a matte, because what's out there is high gloss, black and gold packaging. So we're like, well, we'll be white and we'll be matte finish and black and white and simple. And then the boat illustration came into, we were inspired, I don't know what the brand was, but there's a Russian chocolate company that's been around forever. And when my brother lived in San Francisco, and this little Russian store, they had chocolate bar that they'd buy because the package was just this beautiful picture of a little doll's face or a bear. And it was all art, and the brand was very little on there. It's just this beautiful art piece. So we were really inspired by art and really showing off this beautiful piece, and not so much brand and chocolate, but something that you want to use as a postcard or something. And so the first illustration was that boat, and that was to invoke, it kind of means a few things, but one, coming from a carpentry background, we thought, we always felt that what we're bringing to chocolate is a background craftsmanship, and really trying to understand equipment and tools to fine tune something to be, either a beautiful piece of furniture, an instrument, or in this case, chocolate. And so to us, chocolate making is very similar to carpentry in all of its different techniques and stuff. And so
that's where the woody flavor comes.
Exactly, there's a lot of sawdust in that.
That's so interesting though, because it just evokes the fact that the cacao comes from different places. Like you're traveling as well, and that's so perfect for it.
It's funny how a brand ebbs. You don't think of all this stuff in the beginning, but the more you're in it, you're like, oh, this does kind of mean this, it means that. But anyways, the wooden boat just is kind of the pinnacle of the craft of carpentry. That ties us, and also where we live and where we make chocolates right here in Humboldt County, which is around Humboldt Bay. It used to be one of the largest boat building communities on the West Coast, so it kind of ties us to location as well. And we both love
great.
And stuff like that.
Beautiful.
Where that is, but.
Yeah, really well done. Yeah, it was one of the reasons it was easy to want to work with you guys. I mean, it just everything, you tell your story beautifully. And I mean, that's what I think chocolate should do inside and out on every level. So, yeah, let's tell the Belize story. Chocolate.
So this is the Belize bar.
I love this.
I'll have one. This is like one of the, this isn't quite the oldest origin we've ever been worked with, but this is one of like the longest standing. When we first started working with them, it wasn't even called Maya Mountain Cacao, it was called Moho River Cacao, like a really long time ago.
Until they remembered what the translation was.
Yeah, it wasn't good, I think, or something like that. Yeah, it was really one of those unfortunate things.
It was a really unfortunate translation. So they're like, oh, yeah, I mean, it was basically smelly body part.
Yes. So Maya Mountain Cacao is a co-op down there that buys wet beans from local farmers in the area who are mainly Mayan in the southern portion of Belize. And then at Maya Mountain Cacao, they do the fermentation and they do the distribution to like Western markets or, you know, chocolate makers like us. They pay fantastic premiums to the cacao farmers that they buy beans from. They also provide transparency through the entire supply chain, all the way down to like what the farmers are paid for wet beans, all the way through every cost added before it gets to us, because lots of, you know, changes hands lots of times before it gets to us. So it's a really great origin ethically, but I think what's kept us really committed to Maya Mountain has been the flavor and the quality. It's a really wonderfully, I like to think of it as kind of being more floral flavored. I mean, it definitely has fruit elements to it, but there's always kind of this tropical floral like feeling that I get from eating this bar. So the flavor has always been really fantastic. And, you know, as we look at the bars in our lineup, we don't want necessarily two bars that are like the same, two bars that have a very similar flavor profile. And so this Belize is something that's always been really unique, and it's real like near and dear to us. We make drinking chocolate out of this. We make couverture out of this. You know, it's a real backbone.
It's become our most used bean.
And because it's just fantastically well-rounded. So anyway, I love this stuff. It's really, really good.
You guys haven't been down though, have you?
That's one place we have not been down to yet. I've been to Guatemala, and I was like, maybe we should just like zip across the border over there.
When I went, yeah, you can do it. I mean, when I was, I went on the dancing.
We can't do it right now.
2013, their first group down there to Maya Mountain Cacao. Yeah, you totally can go into Guatemala from there. It's you know, it's a great time. You've seen some pictures.
Yeah.
I really love this one. This is one of my favorite chocolates because I don't know, it just hits two really satisfying notes for me. It hits that kind of like gut level, you know, like this is chocolate kind of sensation, but then also I like the fruit in it. There's still like a strong, but not an overwhelming fruit. And so I love the way that I get both of those angles on it. This one does it for me.
Yeah.
Chocolate covered cherries a lot sometimes for me is sort of where it goes. Somewhere in there, loosely speaking.
I do have a cherry cider here. I'll tell you how it goes with cherries.
Yeah, I bet that's going well.
Yeah.
Oh, that is very, very good.
The chamomile, the floral.
And then we won a bronze. What year was that? The Northwest Chocolate Festival. We won a bronze for the Belize Bar, and then the same year we won a Good Food Award for this. 2013, 2014. And that was really the first like kind of awards that Belize had ever won. And so as an origin, and so they can really help them.
Let's hear it, Bradford.
What's it like to win an award? And is that the kind of thing that, like remember that Bottle Rocket movie? Was it a little bit like that?
Definitely. Yes. I mean, it's fun. You know, I mean, it's nice to win awards. I think that early on, it was a way, you know, we second guessed whether we were like making anything even like remotely palatable up until like a couple years ago. And so it's helpful to like, we win an award and like, okay, it's validating that I guess it is good. Other people think it's good. And so that, you know, is wonderful. And there's a little bit of like marketing benefit for it. But mainly the funnest part is you win an award, you get to just go down to San Francisco to like the Good Food Awards and hang out with all your chocolate maker buddies. It's the main motivation there.
You see, you get permission to leave town.
Exactly.
Well, this is a good segue to New York, and something that I have, because you guys have just won so many awards. I mean, like, how many awards have you won?
I think it's over 90 now.
See,
Wow.
you know, and I have a feeling that like you're even losing track of your awards
Throw them on the top 10 now.
because well, among other things, I first of all found every now and then I get things in the mail, like big chocolate tasting kits.
Wow.
But also sometimes I have alternate duties. Like I'll go to New York. Well, first of all, I used to do a lot of judging at the Good Food Awards and the International Chocolate Awards. And actually, I think it was 2016 that I was judging, and you guys were like calling me. Hey, our chocolate's not there. Can you do anything about it? I'm literally like, let me see what I can do. We got it overnighted, which was good, which was really good because when the awards came time, I think you've forgotten that you have some awards. Somehow they ended up with me.
Oh, really?
Oh, wow.
Oh, see,
Look at that.
look, you're a winner too.
So this is actually for the Belize this is 2016. I went to New York. I went to the party for you guys. It was your stand-in. I think they also.
We need stunt doubles
Yeah,
all the time.
you're a stunt double.
So yeah, this year, yeah, you may have forgotten, like I said, with all the oodles and oodles of awards, but there was like, yeah, and then you got a bronze in the American Pacific for Guatemala, which is no mas, but beautiful bar, award-winning bar.
You should hang those on your wall.
Yeah, frame those for yourself.
Or maybe someday I promise to bring them to you.
There you go.
Release your
It's a lovely place right now.
You're missing these now. Now you're like, that's where they are. Oh my God.
Once Brianne finds out, it's gonna be over for you.
That's all right. I'll have to come visit. And then silver for the U.S. for Bolivia as well. I thought that was hilarious. I went through all my stuff and
That is
I was surprised. I'm like, oh, I thought I gave those to you guys. They're here for you. And we agree that the Belize is an award winner? I think so.
Yeah, that's good.
I'm a chocolate tasting super nerd, and my wife and I, we always visit the awards in New York, and I too think the Belize is your best 2-ingredient bar.
Well, thank you.
So now I'm hearing that you just started 10 years ago. The Belize bar in particular, certainly in the same category as other producers that we've already name checked here, like Dandelion. But even when I seek out like ultra rare, wild cultivation, you're a peer there of those kind of products as well. I'm just asking you to speculate. What do you think are the ingredients of that superlative success? Like what are you doing so extraordinarily well?
As far as like the quality of the chocolate, is that what you're?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how familiar you are with most, like craft chocolate production models or whatnot, but most chocolate in the U.S. made by small batch producers are made on these stone wet grinders. So there's this drum, a granite stone in the bottom, and these 2 rolling stone wheels, and it will produce. It makes chocolate. Yeah, it makes chocolate. I mean, and that's how we got started. Mm-hmm. It's a fairly inexpensive machine, and it's something that somebody can do to get going. And so that's why I think they've gained a whole lot of popularity. I think Dustin and I, coming from a woodworking background, it would be like unheard of to think that you would have this machine. I mean, they exist, but that you'd have a machine where you could take like a rough sawn board and feed it into one end, and then out the other end came this chair, finished and sanded and everything at the other side. I mean, so instead we had wood shops that had band saws and face sanders and edge sanders and joiners and planer. And you have a whole battery of machines, because each one of those machines does a specific task like really, really well. And so you run all the wood through this machine, and then you take it over to this one, run it all through that machine. And so I think that framework brought towards chocolate making, you're thinking, well, how does nib grind? Because nib is this fibrous plant material. Versus how does sugar grind? Sugar is very different. It's like closer in its like properties to like glass or something, you know, very crystalline. So when you think of those two things, grind very differently. So you put them in the same machine together, and some things grind faster than others, and some things over grind really quickly. And so it's hard to control all the variables that go towards flavor, texture, etc. in a machine like that. So we started teasing the process apart. How do we refine the sugar? How do we refine the nib into liquor? And then to top it all off, I mean, one of the most critical steps in chocolate manufacturing is conching of the chocolate, which is, I mean, I'm sure you know about, but conching is more about flavor and texture development and less about refining the particle size. And there's lots of aeration, there's lots of temperature control that happens in conching to develop the flavor and texture properly. And so most chocolate isn't conched in that way. We have a specific, chocolate conch, we have roll refiners, ball mills, all kinds of stuff to address all these issues, and it comes together in the end, and hopefully the better. So that's kind of been our take. So we have like a lot of steps to get to where that is, but as if you have machinery of the appropriate size, it can be done, at a reasonable amount of labor. I mean, it's a lot more labor, but.
So I also have a question. You were inspired by the Maas brothers, and
Yeah.
Faking it.
or El Rey chocolate into their molds. And so my question is, how can someone kind of understand your integrity or know that your process is legitimate compared to someone who's just kind of remolding chocolate? Like how would you distinguish your process from someone who is remolding another company's chocolate? Like,
I think, we try to be as transparent as possible. All of our social media, our live feeds, our tours, we're an open book. So we can take you guys on tour right now. And so it's, as far as we're not hiding anything. All of our secrets, all of our beans, everything is there, and so we try to tell that side of our story. We're probably not the greatest at that, and actually Brianne's been getting on us more to like, you guys have to tell your story more, because we do, as Adam was saying, all those steps, we're one of probably two in, I don't know, the world, I mean, who dry conches, because we go through all these steps to dry conch, and we're one of less than two in the world that do that. And so
just assuming you were throwing time at it, because the text
it's
is
like throwing time.
They must be conching for 20 hours or something.
Yeah, so there's
there is time. I mean, we're conching for a really long time,
but all the steps between all that kind of stuff. So we'll do a better job telling that kind of stuff.
what signals should the consumer be looking for that indicates legitimacy versus kind of the
Right. What's your advice to the educated consumer? What to look for?
I mean, it's not across the board, something that you could write off. But I mean, in the craft chocolate model, typically the way that the industry has been going is simpler, stripped down ingredients. So most of us, some of us do 2 ingredient. Some of us add a little bit of cocoa butter to it. And usually the cocoa butter is like where it stops. That's like the end all for craft chocolate, is if you add cocoa butter or not. But you'll rarely see vanilla, and you'll rarely see any type of lecithin in like a craft chocolate bar. That's just the way the model's been. So typically, if you see things like that, if you see lecithin, and if you see, like vanilla, vanillin, any of those things, it could be an indicator that it's not necessarily like craft chocolate, but then you're relying on somebody to report the ingredients accurately. And we also do make couverture that has cocoa butter and sunflower lecithin in it. It doesn't have any vanilla, so we make products that have that in it as well. But I mean, I think it's mostly, it's like for us, what we rely on so heavily in our supply chain and maintaining the ethics in the supply chain is a really close knowledge with the people that we're working with. And making sure.
Because this is my work. Really, how do I present craft chocolate to people so that they can understand it? And and there's no way around doing some homework. And I mean, I argue that that's part of the pleasure. So what Adam was talking about, simple ingredients. The second I see lecithin, I'm wondering why it's in there. And all of these are rough guidelines, though, and there's no way around getting acquainted with a chocolate maker and understanding their processes. But, simple ingredients, no lecithin. And also, part of what I've done is created craft chocolate selections. So, there's power in numbers. If, you just see Dick Taylor on a wall of chocolate, it's a little harder to contextualize, but that's part of why I kind of try and contextualize it as these are craft chocolate makers. Also price point. You're really hard. I don't know of craft chocolate makers who sell their chocolate for under $5 a bar. They tend to be closer to 10. Again, these are just some parameters to help you navigate, but the fun part is exploring.
Well, my more important question is, what are you drinking with your chocolate tasting?
Oh, tonight we have some Campfire Stout
From Highwater
from
Brewing.
Highwater Brewing.
It's kind of a little bit like on the sweeter side, so it goes kind of well with chocolate. It's got a little bit of like vanilla and molasses in there, so it's pretty good.
Awesome.
Let's
So
see.
we've got a couple ciders from a local cidery right around here.
That's a cherry. Is that like fermented cherry right there, or?
They put cherries. They'll make an apple cider and then they put cherries. I think they just age it with the cherries.
We're in New England, so we have all kinds of fermented apples.
Yeah. And if you can get a cherry, cherry ciders. I love this cider. It's it's like kind of red cherry color.
Yeah.
They made a special batch of this one, so they put a bunch of our cacao husk in the like fermenter, and it was like those cherry cordials when you like the liqueur inside the bottle shaped chocolate.
Yeah.
It tastes just like that. It's amazing. It's like drinking this delicious cordial. So I like cherry and chocolate because it just kind of is reminiscent of that.
Nice. Okay, cool. Thank you very much.
I have a question. How much chocolate do you manufacture in any, say, a year?
Yeah. Okay.
All told, with all the different kinds of bars.
Yeah. So let's start in on the Brazil. If you guys haven't started in on the Brazil first, just so we can.
So Brazil or?
Talk forever. Yeah. Brazil.
I have Madagascar. Well, I don't have Brazil. We have Madagascar.
You should have 4 bars.
Yeah, there should be a Brazil. It's in the blue wrapper.
No, I didn't get that. Somehow or other, I didn't get the things that we were supposed to. That's okay.
All right. Well, whatever chocolate you have. Then,
I have Madagascar.
Yeah, double up on Belize.
I didn't get the Brazil, but yeah, I was curious how much production you have.
Yeah. So I think last year, I'd have to go back and look at what the stats were. We did probably 20 or 21 tons of finished chocolate. So we maybe purchased 25 or 28 tons of cocoa beans. And it sounds like a lot. And I mean, it is kind of a Herculean effort to make all that. But, you talk about like a mid-sized producer. Somebody I would say it's kind of like mid-sized chocolate producer might make 500 to 700 tons a year. And that would be somebody like Theo or Cho. But when you talk about Nestle or, Hershey, Mondelez, it's like millions of tons.
Well, didn't Mars put in perspective? Well, I thought that science had said, and that was a couple of years back, but all the craft chocolate makers in the US at that time, all of our annual production together was 1 hour of Mars production. And so that kind of puts it in perspective.
Yeah, so I mean, we're definitely, we're very much a craft small batch chocolate maker. I think we could grow to like 4 times the size we are and still be a small batch craft chocolate maker. So anyway, yeah, but that's what we're doing currently.
So is Brazil, talk about Brazil a little bit.
So Brazil is probably one of our newer origins that we're working with. But we were looking for something that just kind of had a real, just a nutty, like a flavor profile. We had Madagascar's kind of fruity, as we'll see. Belize, like I said, is a little bit more floral. We wanted something that just had a real nice, like very even, kind of more nut flavored profile. And so the Brazil really fit that bill. And so it comes from a place called Fazenda Camboa in the northern part of Brazil. And they are, I think they're actually one of the largest organic producers of cacao in Brazil currently. And the farm has had a huge rebound from, Brazil had a huge problem with witch's brew, which is a disease that affects the cacao. And they finally recovered from the witch's broom.
It was the greatest act of bioterrorism on earth, by the way.
Yeah, it was like really, really bad. And then they went into this like series of droughts. And so Brazil's kind of had a real rough go at cacao production.
It used to be one of the producers. It used to be massive.
Yeah, they used to be really big, and now they're like getting bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's something that we really like, and we use it as an origin bar. It's also in a blend that we make that we use for some of our inclusion bars. And so it's a real, along with the Belize, it's kind of a workhorse that we put in quite a bit of stuff.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Have you only gotten one round of this?
One round?
No, we've had 3 or so shipments of, I think, 3 or 4.
Okay. Because it's for me, it appeared like it was growing on me, and I think actually, like at first, it was a little more astringent.
I can tell you why it's growing on you, because it was about it was about middle of the year last year that I tasted it and I was like, I still feel like it's not like, there was something about it that I was like, it's drifted or it's not quite whatever I wanted. So I went back and I started looking at the roast profile, and I was experimenting with some things, and I actually lengthened the roast profile by I think it's almost 10 minutes longer, which you'd think is like, way crazy, but it really, I think, helped the flavor smooth out a bit. And I think it even accentuates the nuttiness a little bit more. So it's probably why you've noticed the difference, because the roast profile changed.
Because it is different.
It's very different.
Huh.
Yeah.
So, in the beans, I would have chalked it up to the beans, but.
Yeah. There has been a little bit of variability, but we significantly changed the roast profile because I just felt like it could be improved. And it's grown on me as well, I would say.
Yeah, same, absolutely.
Well, should we go to
Shall we
Madagascar?
go to Madagascar?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
What's the best way to store your chocolate after you've opened it? If in the rare event that you haven't devoured the entire
Yeah, exactly. Do not store your chocolate. Just eat it. I'm sure you've heard like the usual. You don't want to put it in your refrigerator. You want it just to stay like, basically, if you can keep it below like 70 degrees, ideally, mid 60s would be better. But if you can keep it at like 70 or below.
If you get serious, get a wine fridge and set it to the highest setting. They usually mine go up to 64 degrees.
Right.
And you do have to watch humidity a little bit. That's more the problem. That's a lot of the problem with fridge. Also, don't do radical temperature changes quickly. So you could store your bars in the fridge if they are absolutely in airtight packaging, and then you also then very carefully brought them up to temperature. But it's better not to do that because the temperature and humidity changes are what really messes with your chocolate. So that's what you're really trying to prevent. So seal it up as best you can.
Okay.
somewhere cool and dry where you would store your wine in particular is what I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the back of your cupboard or something
Yeah.
like that.
But if you do store it in your like spice cupboard or next to your like stinky cheese, the cocoa butter will tend to absorb aromas. So
Oh.
you know, it's a fun experiment. I mean, you could break up one of our bars and put it in a jar and then put like some chai tea in the jar and just put the lid on and let it sit for like 3 or 4 weeks. And you take it out, eat the chocolate, it'll taste just like chai. It's pretty amazing.
Wow.
Chai.
Okay.
So anyway, if you want your chocolate to taste like it should, keep it away from all your spices. If you want it to taste like spices, then do whatever.
But like I could put it in like a Tupperware thing.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yep,
Okay.
that'd be perfect.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, Madagascar.
Mhm. I always think, okay, because we're starting with our eyes, this one is a really cool one to look at. This one is one of the ones that is very obvious visually that it's different from the others. It has a really beautiful reddish tone that I always like to point out. And that actually helps me to, you're talking about identifying origins. That reddish tone is what helps me identify and the signature flavor notes. Madagascar is pretty easy to guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just want to interject with that for sure.
Yeah, some people say, is it a milk chocolate? It's very red.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the oldest origin. This is the one we've been working with the most.
This is the OG.
This is the beginning right here.
Our first ever bag of cacao that we bought was from Madagascar. And we bought it from this, Dustin was saying, John Nancy, who has an online kind of chocolate supply place in Eugene. And we bought this bag of Madagascar. Came down, he had just zip tied a shipping label, UPS shipping label to this bag.
Uh-huh.
So it shows up, and then UPS guy said, you're gonna have to help me carry this thing in. It shows up at my house, and so we like drag this bag in. It's like dripping cocoa beans across the sidewalk. And that was it. That was the first Madagascar.
Mm.
Then we started using family members who were driving up to Oregon to hustle us more beans back in the backs of their cars and trucks and stuff like that in the early days.
Yeah, Madagascar it's one of those origins that it's almost like, I don't know, you prove yourself as a chocolate maker by making a Madagascar bar. It's like this hallmark because it was one of the very first kind of like more readily available, very high quality, very consistent origins of organic cocoa beans.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was kind of something that everybody like starts on because you can get it. But what's great about the Madagascar is I feel like even still having working with it for 10 years, I still get ideas of like maybe ways we could change the roast or change some parameter because it is a really complex bean and you can get rid of a lot of that kind of like fruity tang to it by roasting it a lot more, which changes it and you get almost like this peanut butter note. It's real interesting, but so it's kind of like balancing those two things. And so it's really still very fun and interesting to have in the lineup. And it is amazing to me how consistent they can produce that stuff. Year after year, the fermentation level is like almost identical. The moisture content is like almost identical. So all the hallmarks that we look for in consistency and quality are all there with Madagascar. And so that's all, another reason why we've kept with it, even though most chocolate makers do have a Madagascar. But because of that, it's a great, if you're wanting to do another tasting like this on your own, it's great to buy a bunch of Madagascar bars and taste them all side by side. And, so it's kind of neat that way because it is one of those things, one of those origins that you can do that with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we actually did that with Belize. Actually, we did that with Belize before too.
Yeah.
Now a lot of people have my mountain cacao. It's a good time. Yeah, and the Madagascar, I always say everybody's got a Madagascar because it's reliable and interesting.
Yeah.
And that, right, those two things right there, I mean, come on, right? I mean, reliable and interesting cacao is very, 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 very hard to come by, and especially 10 years ago, it was basically impossible to come by. So, I mean, like you'd find something magical, get a sample of something magical, and then your shipment shows up and you're like, what is this?
Yeah,
But
this is who ordered this? Yeah, exactly.
Bar that never came to be. Right?
Yeah.
I had a question. Oh, sorry. Someone else had a question. Go ahead.
Oh, I had a question. You make chocolate with inclusions. Do you like doing that? Is it something that I mean, I don't particularly care for inclusions unless they're cocoa nibs, but I just wondered how you feel about the inclusions.
Yeah, the inclusions, they're a love-hate relationship. I mean, it's definitely more work to make an inclusion bar. Our top seller is our black fig bar, which is on this Madagascar chocolate, and you know, you get dried figs and you hand slice them and you dry them and then you dry them again and you chop them, and there's all this extra work to make an inclusion bar. But as far as our lineup goes, definitely inclusion bars are our top sellers. I mean, those are the the black fig and fleur de sel and brown butter are kind of like our top three big guys, and then you've got single origin. So I kind of feel like in craft chocolate, inclusions are kind of that nice gateway into somebody's used to other chocolate flavors and stuff. Sometimes just dark 2-ingredient chocolate can be a little intense for somebody, and so inclusions are kind of a nice way to bring in a candy vibe. You know, we've had a candied almond before, and more of that sweet, playful side of chocolate. And so we try to have both, but inclusions are, it's kind of like you get to be more experimental. We have a micro batch subscription where every month we force ourselves to come out with something new. And that was great and terrible at the same time. It's usually on the 29th of the month that we're like, it's gotta go out. Ship it out. But we're in our 20th of those. So, I mean, think about it, it's 20 different inclusion bars we've made in the last 20 months. And so those are fun. But what brought us to chocolate was single origin chocolate and cocoa beans. And really, in the end, I mean, that's what our foundation of our story is on too, is we're trying to, and we do a lot of work on our end to make the texture nice. But really what we're trying to do is highlight a bean from a farmer who's done all this work on their end. I mean, the amount of work that's happened to grow the cacao and then pick it and ferment it and all this kind of stuff before it even comes to us is just, they do a lot more work than we do. And so, so we really, that's where 2-ingredient chocolate really highlights. That's why we're trying to do 2-ingredient chocolate. It's like adding some cocoa butter. I love added cocoa butter to chocolate. A lot of these other chocolate makers, sometimes I wish we added cocoa butter because it's so creamy and smooth and delicious. But really what we built our foundation on and what really keeps us going on Origins is highlighting these different fun beans. That's still an exciting part about chocolate, is that a bean from Madagascar, from Bertil Akerman, tastes different than a bean from Brazil, from Fazenda Camboa. And there's that industry, there's always a new farm popping up or new something happening. And so single origins are always going to be there, and that's our exciting stuff. But inclusions are, that's kind of two different sides of it.
Yeah, I mean, when I eat chocolate personally, it's usually the origin bars. That's just kind of like my bent.
That's what.
But I do like the inclusion bars a lot. And I mean, it's a way of playing with texture and flavor and aroma in ways that you just can't quite do with the chocolate. Yeah.
I have one short question. How many people work at your place in production, not in sales, but in production?
Oh, production? Not 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8.
Yeah.
Probably 7.
And that's through
Wow.
like raw beans to molded bars.
Really small.
Yeah. I mean, there's only 17 total. So
Not counting retail staff. And, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
Speaking of fun stuff, I told you guys I wanted to see those s'mores.
Oh yeah, so we do have.
I'm a purist myself, but every now and then, these guys come up with something really fun, and I just gotta.
So we're always trying, chocolate. Summertime's a slow season for us chocolate makers, so we try to figure out how can we be relevant in the summertime. So we put together these s'mores kits. If anybody likes s'mores, it's got a couple sticks of our chocolate, marshmallows made by this wonderful marshmallow company called Malavi, and then Effie's oat cakes. If you guys are into that, and are the oat cakes gluten free?
Depends on the oats, I think.
Yeah, I don't think that these are. But anyway, it's a really cool little
elevating the s'more.
Yeah. And then, yeah, so if you guys are looking for something in the summertime,
We're pushing hard.
I have a comment because we just got a text from friends that we sent one of the s'mores kits. They showed us they had it in their mouth. They said,
awesome.
Oh, good.
That's great.
Yeah, we're about to, I don't know if any of you had the milk chocolate micro batch, but that's about to come out as our full-time bar, and it's with the local A2 milk from Alexander Farm. So anybody who's lactose intolerant or anything, this should be milk chocolate for you. And we'll be the, I think, first chocolate maker in the world making an A2 chocolate bar. So that'll be coming out in the next couple weeks. Yeah.
Starting out that, is it still Madagascar? Sorry, did you just say that?
No, we actually switched up to Brazil.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, it's a totally new milk. And Bradford, let's hear your question.
Finally, gosh.
You are so patient.
I had like 4 questions. I forgot all of them now. Well, let's take a step back and let's talk about Eureka. So I've heard that Eureka is this kind of magical place where you have like micro earthquakes and people are expecting the end of the world to happen at any minute, and they're like super blissful.
Oh, we love it.
Is that true?
I'm not expecting the world to end at any minute, but this is pretty blissful up here.
Yeah, it's great. And the earthquakes, I think a lot of people fear the earthquakes or think we have great big earthquakes, but I mean, everybody just rolls with them up here. It's just no big deal. And so we think it's perfect. You know, it's like the weather, we don't get hotter than 70 degrees. We're right on the coast. We're hidden away from everybody. We're
low coronavirus.
I love it up there.
It's up here, okay. Very little race rioting.
Yeah,
so we're potentially a safe haven.
And it's got a really neat, food culture. So a lot of these foods and things that we're preparing are from here, and all the oysters from California come from our bay. And so it's a great spot. If you're ever driving up the 101, swing by and say hi to us. We also love to show people around the chocolate factory.
Affordable housing.
Yep.
No, is it true that
you're gonna love it?
is it true that there are you could take flights, you have planes that land there, right?
We do, yeah.
Every once in a while.
Yeah. We haven't
well, I mean, if the fog rolls in, you might not land, but
there's a direct Denver and LA and San Francisco.
That's true.
And then you can go to Medford maybe, or Portland, I don't know.
Yeah, it's just kind of the little hopper planes.
But so you can fly there because it's a long drive from Los Angeles.
Oh yeah. You can fly, and there's a direct flight.
Yeah, it would take you a year to drive from Los Angeles, I think.
I know. I'm from. Many of us here tonight are from the East Coast, and on the East Coast, it's small compared to California. I mean, to get from LA to Eureka is. I'm not a math major, but that's like 24 days. I'm not sure how long it takes.
It's about 12 hours, I think.
Yeah, it's like, about 12 hours.
Yeah. All right. So I had another question. So there's a company called Bellwether Coffee. Do you know them?
Yeah. Bellwether.
Yeah. So Bellwether Coffee, they invented this product. It's like a refrigerator size, but it's a roaster. And the idea is that you take your beans if you're a cafe and you kind of become your own roaster.
Yes.
Yeah. And at one point, Jessica had turned me on to a small chocolate company that they were selling different roasting amounts, like medium roast, light roast. So I'm curious how you determine that roasting profile, and if you would ever consider, if that's like something you would consider, like offering different roast profiles.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of questions there. We do have a protocol for developing a roast profile, and it typically obviously starts at we roast in a convection oven on sheet pans, and we're roasting for flavor. We're not necessarily thinking about time or temperature, just what happens to the flavor over time. Okay. We can take the sample that we like the best from that initial roast, and then we can take that to our big roaster and literally, I mean, it's kind of low tech, but we'll be roasting on the drum roaster, 35 pounds in there, whatever, tasting beans against the sample that we pulled from the convection oven and trying to gauge what's happening in the drum roaster when they taste similar. We have logged that data into a little laptop that reads these temperature probes in the roaster. So then we have a baseline roast profile, then we can try to tweak it from there. And then every once in a while, we'll go back and taste batches and see if the roast profile is still like doing the same thing, or if it seems like the bars aren't tasting the same, we can go back and look at the roast profile. As far as having like bars with different roast profiles, I don't think that's something that we would do. Ideally, the thing is, when you buy a Dick Taylor bar, you're buying it because, I mean, really, you like the bar, you like the way that I make chocolate, I like the way that it tastes, I like the texture, you like that too. And so you're trusting me as a chocolate maker to say like, this is the optimal expression of this bean and this is like the best texture. And so that's kind of just like the mod, that's just what we've done. I mean, I think you're referring to Fresco with the different roasts and stuff. And I think it's a really interesting thing. And it kind of then puts a little bit of the control into the consumer to say, I prefer, this over this from the same maker, yeah. So it's a different way to look at it. But for us, it's kind of like, this is how we feel like it, it ideally should taste, or that we like.
Awesome. Well, we're like 20 past, and I know, yeah, like we've tasted through these chocolates. We've gotten some questions in. I want to also say a couple of things, like, what do you guys got going on for Father's Day? I feel like there's also something you got for Father's Day, and then I want to talk about the other Meet Your Makers. I have, I even have some photos if anybody's interested, and some way back video footage that I'm sure you guys would absolutely love to see.
Love it. Yeah, for Father's Day, this year especially, we've been hustling out a lot of new stuff. And so there was a Mother's Day gift box. This year is a Father's Day gift box that is on the website now we'll ship it the week of Father's Day. But trying to expand not only our chocolate offerings, but, chocolate a lot of times is a gift. And so trying to really build up that side of the website to be able to be a full service gift space so we can wrap things up and get it all ready for
And we also have these really cool for Dad stainless steel insulated mugs with kind of a camping theme, Dick Taylor-ish.
It's got lid on it too.
Lid, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you don't want that spilling.
No.
No, I mean mine spills. I gotta get one of those. Oh, that's awesome. We're in kind of wrap. I guess if I want to have respect for the audience. Some of you guys are really into it and want to ask more questions, which is great. We can kind of keep going. Some of you have tasted chocolate, and it's it's coming up. It's pushing 6:30, so I just wanted to take the time quickly to absolutely thank everybody. Thank Bradford for his musical contribution.
Thank you.
Dustin and Adam, you guys are always just a blast to hang out with. And all of you who are participating, absolutely. I want to let you know that next week we're going to do Fruition. They're in upstate New York. Everybody knows everybody, so Adam and Dustin know these guys. And my Dick Taylor boxes didn't show up, but Fruition just showed up this afternoon.
Oh, very good.
Yeah. From New York, no less. Never mind, like California can't get its act together, I guess. But, the next week we're gonna do Fruition, and it's a range of bars from, I don't know what order I have them in, but they're 100% all the way to dark milk chocolate. And so this is a particularly good set for people who like variety in that way of, kind of really a progression from, one ingredient to, a dark milk chocolate. And then the week after, the following Thursday, we'll be doing Ritual Single Origin Collection, which is a really cool box set of their single origins. There's a Belize and a Madagascar in here. It's really interesting to compare and contrast. I'll point that out. I think with you know the competition. Come on now. Yeah, so that's what's coming up. I'm also going to do an Instagram live on next Friday at 2:30 to do some Father's Day stuff. But that's kind of the what do we call it? The advertising section of the get that out of the way. And I definitely hope you guys appreciate it. I'm totally open for feedback, and we can now. I kind of want to do. I don't know if you guys want to play another song, and actually maybe I can. What if I do a slideshow during it?
All right.
I
Sure.
my screen. It's just got some photos of. Or what do you think?
Yeah, let's do it.
And then after that, I will put on a video that I don't know if you guys even want to see. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? You have any guesses of what video I'm talking about?
Coco Rustica.
Nailed it. Coco Rustica is on deck.
Waltz. Alvin Waltz.
Let's see some Dick Taylor history here.
Yeah, then. Okay, ready? Well, I was standing down hard to. It seemed like my whole world was lost. I took a chance. I learned to dance to the tune of the Alabama. Walk, walk, the Alabama walk. Get on my feet, there in your arms. Lord of the Johns, we dance together. I was standing down hard to. Seems like my whole world is lost. I took a chance. I learned to dance to the sound of the Alabama. Walls, walls, the Alabama walls. They're on my feet. There in your arms. All of your charms, we dance to the Alabama walk. We dance to the Alabama walk. We dance to the Alabama.
Woo, 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 woo.
Yeah, those are some old photos.
Yes.
Photos of our new place.
Yes, and of your old place too.
That's
That's me in the back holding up your awards that I'm still hanging on to.
perfect.
Our promo. Hey,
Yeah.
those guys, I don't know. Oh, how'd that one slip in there? I feel like this is a live one that it won't go. Anyways, that one was a really fun one of you guys performing. This is being your alter ego.
wrap in.
Headed to the Galapagos. Brought you to Ecuador. Didn't Camino Verde. That's old news. Yeah, you guys have missed a lot of these. These are going more recent with Carla. Oh, this is Brienne's calligraphy. This T-shirt that I'm currently, one of the T-shirts that I wore today, has her calligraphy, and she's amazing. Brie Taylor. I highly recommend. And this is in March. This is before all the walls closed in. Look at how close we were.
We were living dangerous in San Francisco.
It looks like, well, and then the grand finale, of course. Oh, well, here we go.
That was the last time you ever saw people in the United States that close together.
Basically. Well, and then you actually were meant to go to the next stop, but you didn't. And so you actually missed, talk about close contact. You missed it though. You guys were coming to the bar and then you decided not to.
I go to bed early. So.
Yeah, we're old. Really old.
Yeah, they're not known for their late hours. That's for sure.
We used to be old.
Now I'm really upset because, oh, here it is. I thought, just to wrap up, does this look familiar?
Oh yeah, a little bit of copper. Jessica stuck down one of our machines.
I will never.
Corporate espionage.
So when I went up to visit them, I was, not minding my own business. I was minding theirs. And there was this little hook on top of one of the machines, and the machine was running and nothing was coming out. And so it wasn't you guys, but it was somebody. They were like, yeah, jam that thing down in there. Well, and I kind of stirred it around and nothing happened. He said, no, stick it down in there. Well, if you stick it down in there, it is a copper rod and it will get caught in the machinery. I've never had more of a heart attack in my life.
We're lost paper here now. We don't let you touch things.
Jessica hasn't been up here since then.
I haven't, but I'm going to come back, but I won't touch anything. But this is my reminder of why I will never, ever, ever make chocolate.
Awesome.
Nice. And yes, and as Brie would say, thank you. Brie's modern calligraphy. She does like beautiful work. Really, she does. She does your small bars too. The calligraphy on
that. She did when we had the small bars. Yep. Brie does art for us. My cousin Gabe works for us. He does a lot of the graphic design and work. And then my brother and my dad. So yeah, it's all the family of doing all the graphic work.
The talent levels are insane. Totally insane. Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks to everybody. I'm going to put on Coco Rustica for anybody who wants to watch it. It really is going around minute. You got to kind of hang in until about minute 6. But this was filmed, how long ago was this?
Oh boy, that's 2000.
But ironically, I'm making a batch of Coco Rustica for Mark right now.
Shut up. No, really?
Yeah, he still kind of has he still has kind of this like little faithful following. And so he buys it from us every once in a while and like does his thing. So yeah, it's kind of fun. Yeah, he's still around. He's a good guy.
Awesome. Okay, well, I think I'll put that on as kind of our exit. If that.
Okay. Yes, thank you guys so much.
Gotta ask before this opportunity slides away. Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure of that. I hope you had a good time. I hope you learned a little bit. I hope you enjoyed the fun, and hope to see you for other ones. Yeah. You guys are the best. I love working with you guys. Yeah, so thank you for doing this. It's been a lot of fun.
Oh, it's our pleasure.
You get to Coco Rustica?
Right on, play that fish.
All right, you guys.
All right, let's see.
Back then.
I gotta figure out this screen sharing business first, but it'll go on. It's pretty funny, I think.
We're going to have a culinary adventure tonight, and it's also an adventure in creating or co-creating culture. You know, I've been on this quest for a couple of years, and it's really captured my heart and imagination, and I'll try to describe some of that to people, but it's not just food, it's creating a culture. Now, here's the cocoa itself. Hi. How are you?
Good. Rachel.
Mark.
Nice
Glad to meet you. It's very close to the original. It's 100% cacao. Nothing's been added and nothing has been removed except for the shells. We've so denatured it, and it is now just a candy. It's not a food anymore as it was for the Aztecs and the Mayans. And it doesn't flow anymore the way it did for 3,900 out of 4,000 years that it's been around. Thomas Jefferson used to drink it. And Thomas Jefferson wrote to John Adams. He said, you know, chocolate, which he meant drinking chocolate, is so nutritious and so delicious that I'm sure it will soon supplant coffee and tea as the premier drink of all Americans. So I thought about that with some amusement. I thought, well, here comes the patriot. I'm going to reinstitute what Thomas Jefferson promised would happen. It's only been a few hundred years.
What adds something very interesting to the spaghetti sauce.
Yes, it goes very well with tomato.
Meatballs.
Yes.
Chocolate meatballs.
The thing is to use little enough that you're not creating a chocolate flavor. You're bringing the chocolate in underneath.
What are you trying to do here?
Yes, actually a whole range of products. We don't normally play with our food this much, and not communally either, if you know what I mean. I mean, this is the chance to be together and say, hey, I just tried this. And what I'd like to do is to see it go around the world and in different cultures be adapted to their specific cuisines and their specific cultures and the rituals that they want to create around it. This is the playground where you start to play with your food. Play with the drink, steer it in different directions. Just anyone you like. Yeah, you could use a shaving brush. Chocolate itself is like 600 compounds. And they all provide a complexity. They offer a complexity that we're not used to. Bitterness is not just bitter. Bitter is interesting.
Yeah, you haven't tried it. It's really good. Totally changes the flavor. Each ingredient brought out the flavor of the next one. And now it's a completely different product.
Every single blend was its own country.
I feel like we're at the birth of something really magnanimous. And it feels really exciting, especially being here, kind of one of the birthplaces of the food movement. The Gourmet Ghetto, working the back cottage, experimenting with all these wonderful essences and chocolates. So I feel really excited to have been there.
It's something that is so new. There's nowhere on the planet where this exists. That's extraordinary. There's nowhere on the planet where this exists. Out of all the chocolate that exists everywhere, there's nothing like this. This is really a new product.
I don't really want this to be just a commodity because, frankly, it will be so easy for people to counterfeit it. I mean, I was warned from day one. If you want to hear an interesting conversation, I was in Brazil, in Bahia, and I was being hosted by a man who one morning to me at breakfast said, you know, I think you've got a great idea here. I think it can succeed. But I have to warn you, you're getting into a very tough territory here. He said, this chocolate business is dominated by about 3 enormous companies, Nestle, Mars, and Hershey's, and they don't like competition.
What you've got is something that is unique, and it's really about the way you present this vision of this product, and what you're selling really is this vision. It truly was great. So I think that's what you need to pump up, is this idea that this is about your connection to this a very real connection.
In some ways, I don't fit the profile of a modern businessman. I've lived a very different life. I'm more a man of story and adventure. A long time ago, right after college, I jumped off the regular track and went to the wilderness. And I'm talking about deep wilderness. So coming back into the world and launching a venture like this is one of the bigger adventures of my life because it stretches so much. This is like putting lightning in a box or magic inside a bag. Packaging love. And my sense is that while you can replicate this on one level, without story, without the story that connects us with one another, it's a little hollow. It's just another thing on a shelf. I'm eager like a child to find out what's around that next corner. I seem to be getting younger. I don't know why. For the past year, I've been looking far and wide in this country and even abroad for some bean-to-bar chocolate makers who'd be ready to make Cocoa Rustica 100%. Cacao and nothing removed. But here, right in front of me, I've found two remarkable young men, Adam and Dustin, who are working in a cafe inside a lumber yard, and they've begun to make Cocoa Rustica. So I'm on my way now to Almquist Lumber to see them make a second batch of Cocoa Rustica.
Originally, chocolate was always drunk, and so now I think him trying to revive that, I think is really cool, and I think it's something that, you know, hasn't been done in a long time, and I think the modern chocolate industry has never thought about, well, how will we optimize our chocolate making process for a very, like, you could call it antiquated form of chocolate, but yet now hopefully it's going to become new again.
That's beautiful.
The nib is heavier than the lighter husk. So for the same particle size, the nib will fall out before the husk does. We're trying to capture the subtle terroir differences of the beans from different regions around the world, much like a winemaker would try to capture the subtle flavor nuances of a grape from a particular region.
Cocoa nibs are starting to get pulverized together and starting to become really smooth. Before they get smooth, they become like a peanut butter, and they want to jump out of this melange, so I really have to keep an eye on things, or else.
I have been serving Cocoa Rustica for many months now, and we have been experiencing the first window of kind of public consumption of the Cocoa Rustica. And it has been a brilliant, brilliant thing. You should see what happens. I mean, all different people from all different walks of life come in and do. Oh my God. Oh my God. Honey, taste this. You're not going to believe it. It's incredible. Oh, no, give it back. And so all of a sudden, they both have to have a cup. And there's this other couple over here, and they're warring. You know, they don't know what to say to each other. And I go, what do those people do?
This chocolate is good for you. And the bitterness that it begins with is not a whole lot different from what we encounter at various points in our lives, and yet can modify to something absolutely wonderful. That's been the trajectory of my own life. I just drank a cup of Cocoa Rustica just now, and it's evening, and I'm able to see the light on the grasses as they're waving with such a sense of just pure, simple delight. I don't think if someone gave me $10,000 right now, it would equal the delight I have in seeing that light on those grasses at this moment.
I think there has to almost be a naivete. Like you can't maybe be Mr. Connors and pull it off.
People have said this is a fast-paced society. How are people going to pause to take the time to drink cocoa the way you want them to drink it? People actually are aching to be given the chance to slow down. You pause for a minute A minute in real time. In fact, it is the real time in your life, instead of time when you're racing to be somewhere else. At its simplest level, this is opening up the present moment. This is opening up the present moment for us all to notice.
To go out and be with people you don't know, personally, not on the internet, not through some gap of your cell phone or Skyping, but to actually physically be there. This may be a tool to help us do that.
That's what I feel. This is a cup I'm passing on to others. My cup is running over. My cup runneth over. Why don't you sip some for a while?
Still a few of you left. Thank you all for coming. I forgot actually to say, if you are shopping on for any of this stuff, the Bar Cacao code gives you 10% off. I forgot to mention.
This is a lesson on how to make chocolate from scratch from using raw cocoa beans. There's some other good videos on the internet.
Obviously still figuring out the ins and outs of this. Anyways, I hope you guys had a great time. Thank you so much for coming. Any last minute questions for me? Adam and Dustin signed off. They got families to go home to. But I hope you had a lot of fun. I hope to see you again. I hope this is just kind of up your alley and you learned something and thought it was, good time. So any last minute thoughts or questions, or I thank you. I'm gonna turn off the meeting. We're gonna roll on out. All right, guys. Thanks so much. Take care. Happy chocolate tasting.